Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So do you actually need to know how to use Fusion 360 to make some side gig money? Short answer is no. You don't need to be an engineer or master this whole program. You just need to know enough to make something people will be willing to pay for. So let me prove it. I'm going to design a simple part from scratch, print it, and show you how a skill like this turns into real money on the side. Something like this. This is a cake topper that my friend asked me to make for her upcoming wedding. So let's jump into Fusion 360 and I'll show you how I did that. So when importing into Fusion 360, there's one important aspect you need to keep in mind. When you import anything external, Fusion really doesn't know how large the object is. So you need to predetermine a scale that you'd like it to be as you're importing it. You can always change it later, but something I like to do is establish what scale I want to work with prior to bringing it into Fusion. The way I do that is I start with a sketch up here, top left corner. It's asking me to select a profile to draw on. So I'm going to pick that profile here. Very simply, I just want to establish what you might call a canvas, something that's already sized appropriately based on what I'm trying to make. So I'm going to come up to my sketch tool, drop this create drop down, select rectangle, center rectangle. What this does is it allows me to snap to the center of my sketch, click and drag out. It lets me dimension a rectangle that I can size appropriately to the part I'm trying to make. I know that my cake topper is 85 millimeters tall and 190 millimeters wide. Once you have your two dimensions in, you can press enter and now you just have a simple rectangle. You come over here and finish your sketch. Once I import my image, I'm going to try and scale and size it to this rectangle because I know it's already a known dimension. Now I'm going to bring in my SVG file, create another sketch by coming up here and clicking sketch. Instead of selecting a profile down here, I'm actually going to select the rectangle that I just drew. I'm going to come up here where it says insert, drop this down and insert SVG. I'm going to come to my computer and here I have cake topper. If I zoom out here, you can see that the import came in fairly large. The nice thing about Fusion is I can manipulate this import in many different ways. I can flip it upside down, I can mirror it, I can move it left, up, down, anywhere I want to move it. I can keep it on that plane, horizontally, vertically. One really cool feature is I can slide this drag tool in and out and it changes the scale. But if you think about it, if you don't have this rectangle that we drew to start, I could drag this way out and really not know how big this is. I would have to dimension it later. I would have to establish what size this is later once I accept the import. Or I can scale it way in, and if I'm zoomed in on my Fusion screen, you can see, again, you don't really have a really good way to tell how large this is. So that's why I like to draw this rectangle in the background to establish my scale right when I import. So now that I have the rectangle in place, I have the SVG in the direction I want it to print, and I can stretch this out just to fit inside this box that I drew. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be close. So right there, you can see I'm inside the rectangle. I'm a little outside here, almost up against it here, and almost up against it here. That's close enough. So I hit OK. It accepts that SVG as now a sketch. And now I have the words that I'm trying to print along with my original rectangle. I'm going to finish this sketch. Over here in the history of what this project is, I have two sketches now. One is the rectangle and one is my import. I don't really need the rectangle anymore, so I can shut that off and hide it. Here I have the actual wording that I'm looking for. I can manipulate this in space, flip it all around, look at it in 3 dimensions, but as it sits right now, it's still 2 dimensions. And as I manipulate my drawing, my cube is also equally being manipulated. I'm using a shortcut key on my keyboard to hold the drawing and manipulate it. This cube, if you don't use any shortcut keys, you can hit these arrows. It's pointing to this other side of the cube, right? You can go left, flip it up and right. You can rotate it all the way around, right? I want to look at it this way, upside down, if I want to look at it so I can read it, right? So you can do a lot of manipulation of your drawing just by understanding how this cube works. This little home button kind of brings you back to an isometric view if you ever get lost. If you want to just look at it 2-dimensionally, it's facing you now. All I really need to do is give this some dimension. There's no depth to this. To do that, you're going to come to this option right here. It's called extrude. This dialog box pops up. If you just work your way from top to bottom, and it's asking you to select a profile. So I want to select the words to extrude. But if you look, as I drag through here, you can see these other areas are lighting up and highlighting. How an extrude works is it's looking for any closed loop sketch, like in the L hole here, or the A hole. right? Everywhere there's a complete loop, it's looking to extrude that section. So you always want to make sure you're selecting the right sketch or profile to extrude. A lot of times I like to zoom in a little bit just to make sure I grab the right part. You can accidentally select that L where that should be void, and if you select it accidentally, it will extrude that along with the words. So you have to always be mindful of what you're selecting here. Another little dialog box pops up with a distance that you want to extrude. I want to make this 4 millimeters. Over here in your dialog box, there's my distance is 4 millimeters. Right now, we're going to leave the taper angle as 0. And the operation is new body. I'll touch on that in a later extrusion. So you want to click OK or hit enter. And now if you manipulate your drawing in space, instead of a 2-dimensional sketch, I have a 3-dimensional part. All I have left to do is to add that section that's going to get stuck into the cake. And to do that, I don't have to import anything. I can freehand that right inside Fusion here. So I'm going to come back up to my sketch tool, click sketch. And again, it's going to show me those same 3 profiles as it always gives you when you click a sketch. And I don't want to click one of those profiles. I want to start my sketch right on the existing 3-dimensional part. So I click the top of that, zoom really close here. This is where I know is about center of my part. I'm going to come back up here to this create drop down. This time I'm going to select a 2-point rectangle. I'm going to come over here, drag this across. I want to make this 100 millimeters long and again 4 millimeters wide. When you hit enter, now you can see if I zoom out here, you can see there's my sketch. It's just a simple rectangle that's drawn right on top of my 3-dimensional part. I'm going to come over here, finish sketch. This section I just drew is 2-dimensional. And my part up here is 3-dimensional. I need to extrude this part similar to how I extruded the words. So once again, you come up to this extrude option. It's asking what type of extrude. So I'm going to do a full extrude. And it's saying again, what profile would you like to select along with that section there. Here's where you have a couple options to choose from. Let's say I didn't know the thickness of this original part. I do know it's 4 millimeter because I just extruded it, but let's just say I didn't know that. If you come to this extent type, instead of a distance where it allows you to type in an exact dimension, if you open this up, it gives you this to object option. If I select that and I just simply turn my part around in space, so now I'm looking at the back of it, and I select the backside, what you'll see is the extrusion will stop at the face that I've selected. So it automatically goes to the back of this part because I've selected that surface. But if you look, it's red. It didn't really extrude it. It actually cut that section out of my original part. You come down to this operation, you can see that it's set to cut right now. If I do a join, now it does an extrude into the existing. Hit OK, and you can see it's all one part now. If I hit top, zoom out, you can see now I have the part I showed you at the intro. That's pretty much it. I've only scratched the surface on what Fusion can do. My goal here is to show you how easy it can be making custom 3D prints using Fusion 360. So at this point, if you haven't done so already, save your project so it's not lost. Saving your project is a very good practice to do, especially if you're doing a more complex drawing or part. You want to save it as you go. Now that it's saved, I can right-click on the actual object in the list here. I want to save it as a mesh. And when I come over here to my print utility, my application's already selected as Bambu Studio. It's going to export it as a 3MF file. Bambu Studio will open. And I don't want to print it in this orientation. I want to select this option here that's called Lay on Face. And I'm going to lay it down on the print bed. This is how I would like to print it. Anyone who does 3D printing knows that the face printed on the actual print plate comes out looking nicer with a nice texture. So what I'm going to do is just reselect this object, pick that lay on face feature again, and then select the face that I want it to lay on, which will then just flip it over. Now it'll print with the first layer on the print plate. That's going to be the nicer side. When someone's reading this, it'll have a nice texture on the front. Okay, so now that I have the print sitting on the right face I'd want to print off of, I'm going to use the standard strength default option. Right here, we're going to hit slice, and you can see it's taking about 50 minutes. I'm going to hit print, select the color that I want, and hit send. And that's it. It'll send off to my printer and start printing. Check out this pretty cool time lapse. And do you need to master Fusion 360? No, you just need to know enough to make something people want. And you just watched how little that takes. If this gets your wheels turning, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got a lot of Fusion 360 and 3D printing content coming. Drop a comment on what you would make. I'm genuinely curious. Thanks for hanging out. See you in the next one.